One of the hardest phone calls many families will ever get is realizing a loved one can no longer safely live on their own. And what most people don't realize is that while they're trying to process emotional decisions about assisted living, nursing care, memory care, or having a parent move in with family, they're also suddenly responsible for an entire house, years of belongings, paperwork, finances, and major decisions that often need to happen very quickly. And honestly, many families feel completely overwhelmed before the process even begins. If you're new here, welcome. If you find this information valuable, please like and subscribe, because on this channel, we talk about real estate, downsizing, moving, and navigating life's next chapter. And stay with me, because I also want to share a couple of real life situations I've personally seen families go through during this process. Because sometimes it's the things people don't think about ahead of time that create the biggest challenges later. One thing I see all the time is families assuming this process is simply about finding a place for their loved one to live. But it's so much more than that. Families suddenly find themselves asking, what level of care is needed? How is this all going to be paid for? What happens to the house? What happens to everything inside of it? Can they bring furniture? How quickly do decisions need to be made? What paperwork is needed? And who is responsible for coordinating all of this? And many times, adult children are trying to handle these decisions while working full-time, raising families of their own, or even trying to coordinate everything from another state. At the same time, they're dealing with guilt, exhaustion, fear, stress, and emotions while trying to make major financial and medical decisions for someone they love. That's why one of the biggest pieces of advice I give family is this: slow down enough to ask questions. Because every assisted living community, independent living center, and nursing facility is different. Some allow furniture. Some only allow limited belongings. Some include meals and transportation. Some charge separately depending on the level of care needed. Some have waiting lists, and some may or may not be financially realistic long-term, depending on someone's future needs. And these details matter more than people realize, because they directly affect what happens next with the home and everything inside of it. For example, if your loved one can only bring limited belongings or furniture, now the family has to decide what gets donated, what gets sold, what gets kept, what has sentimental value, and where is everything going while trying to prepare a house for sale. And this is where many families start feeling emotionally and physically overwhelmed, because this isn't just a move, it's a major life transition. I've seen situations where families thought the move itself would be fairly simple, and it turned into complete chaos because there wasn't enough coordination. One client moved into an independent living community, and half their belongings were still back at the old house, while the other half had already been moved into the new apartment. Important items became difficult to find. Even medications became misplaced during the transition. And when someone is already physically struggling, emotionally overwhelmed, or dealing with health issues, a disorganized move can make everything even harder. That's why having someone help coordinate the process can make such a huge difference. Whether that's family members, a trusted friend, a move manager, an estate company, or professionals helping guide the transition, having a plan matters. Another thing families often don't realize is how important paperwork becomes during the process. Now, I am not an attorney, and this is not legal advice, but if you're acting as power of attorney for a loved one, it's very important to understand what you're signing and how you're signing it. Many people don't realize there's a difference between signing personally and signing as a power of attorney on behalf of someone else. And I've actually seen situations where someone signed paperwork personally without fully understanding what they were signing, and later discovered it created financial complications tied to property they inherited. So anytime legal or financial paperwork is involved, ask questions. Make sure you fully understand documents before signing anything, and involve the appropriate professionals when needed. Because while all of this is happening emotionally, there's usually still a house to manage at the exact same time. Maybe the house needs repairs. Maybe it needs to be cleaned out. Maybe there are decades of belongings. Maybe multiple family members are involved in decisions. Maybe there are disagreements, and maybe everyone is already emotionally exhausted before the process even starts. That's why I always tell families, you do not have to solve every problem all at once. Start with immediate needs. What level of care is needed? What monthly budget is realistic? What timeline are we working with? And what realistically can move with them? Because once those pieces become clearer, the rest of the plan usually starts coming together. And one thing that can make this process so much easier is having the right people helping guide you through it. That may include an elder care attorney, a financial advisor, family members, an estate company, and a realtor who understands the emotional and logistical side of helping families through these transitions. Because selling a loved one's home during this stage of life is very different from a traditional move. There's emotion attached to every room, every belonging, and every decision being made. And families often need patience, guidance, resources, and support just as much as they need someone to help sell the property. I also created a simple checklist of questions families should ask when touring assisted living and senior living communities, because there are so many things people don't think about until they're already in the middle of the process. If you'd like a copy, feel free to leave a comment below or reach out. And if you know someone currently navigating through this transition, feel free to share this video with them, because sometimes having a starting point can make this entire process feel a little less overwhelming. I'm Karen Roth from RE/MAX Integrity Leaders. I'll see you soon.